the most insular of religious communities.
There are no boundaries here. Fox 5's Stacey Delicat is here to talk about how the opioid crisis has hit the Orthodox Jewish community. Why is this so surprising to you?
Well, good morning, Rosanna and Lori. It's surprising because for a long time, no one in that community talked about this issue. There was really a lot of stigma and shame associated with it. And so when people did get hooked on drugs, opioids, heroin, it was kept a secret. It was kept within that family. The topics really were just not spoken about. But the truth is, no religious, ethnic, or socioeconomic group is immune from the opioid epidemic, and it's become a shocking enough issue in this community that people no longer want to keep it a dark secret.
Beautiful child, a beautiful baby, a beautiful child.
He'd been to us for a meal 2 weeks before, and he's bounding in. He looks really good. He's slim. He's smiling. He always gave us a big hug. And this kid 2 weeks later was dead.
Casriel Benjamin was 25 when his roommate found him unconscious on his bedroom floor.
I mean, he pulled the rug from out of us altogether because it was so unexpected.
We didn't know he was using drugs. That was the first that we knew that he was using drugs. They told the police, told us he'd overdosed.
The culprit, likely a mix of heroin and Xanax. Casriel's fatal overdose was 6 years ago, and since then the nation's opioid crisis has exploded. But in the Benjamin's Orthodox Jewish enclave of Crown Heights, it's a story that is rarely told, but one that too often is becoming a reality.
We have right now 88 deaths that we know of since January 1st, 2017 to date, that are 100% opioid overdose related.
88 deaths of Orthodox Jews within the tri-state area is a low estimate, and it may pale in comparison to the national death toll of heroin and prescription pain pills, which reached 33,000 deaths in 2015, 5,500 of those in New York State.
This is definitely a crisis. We term this in Hebrew a magefa. This is unproportionate to what we've ever seen before.
Well, that was Rabbi Zvi Gluck, who leads an addiction treatment group for Orthodox Jews called Amudim. He says they get hundreds of calls on a weekly basis from people asking for help fighting drug addiction. Of course, that was just part of our story. We're going to have a lot more tonight at 10 o'clock.
So it's really, I was just going to say, it's really the shame of having to acknowledge it with a community that sort of protects its own.
Yeah, there's a sense that people who are really religious, right, should be held to a higher moral standard, that getting involved in something like drugs, heroin, would be a moral stain. So when this does happen, and of course these drugs are readily available, we're here in New York City, no one wants to talk about it. It's kept within the family, or people will say, oh, if someone passed away, from a drug overdose, it was natural causes. But now it's become such an issue. I mean, 88 deaths just this year related to opioids and heroin in this very tight-knit community.
Just in this community?
Just in this community. Not in Crown Heights, but in the Hasidic Jewish community in our New York metro area, that people are saying enough is enough. We need to talk about it. We need to educate people. They're doing Narcan trainings in Crown Heights several times a year, and they're packed. Hundreds of people want to learn how to use this because now they're seeing this is a real issue.
And those who, are trying to get their child or sister or whoever sober, 30 days in rehab is not enough. And that's why everybody wants the president to declare this a national emergency, because it will free up a little bit more money with the insurance companies.
The mom we spoke to, the parents that we spoke to, so brave and so strong for this story. And she said, rehab's not a car wash. People think you just go and you come out and that's it. It's not. It's a complicated process and it's expensive. And oftentimes insurance just covers the first month, like you said. And, in this community also there are some unique challenges because people want to go to rehabs that cater to Orthodox Jews, that serve kosher food, that, will respect their religious boundaries. And so those are not as easy to find. There are some out there, but, they're filled to capacity. There's waiting lists. And people could die waiting to get a spot.
Certainly, and even the mother saying that she had no idea that her son was using drugs. I think there has to be a certain amount of education also to be able to try to see any warning signs with your child.
Exactly, and that's what they're trying to do in Crown Heights. At least earlier this year, they held an information session. They had people from the local police precinct, health experts. This family that we spoke to actually got up and spoke, and it was packed. Hundreds of people attended this, and that just shows how much concern there is. And the father that we spoke with, Yehuda Benjamin, spoke. He got up and spoke. He was nervous. He said, I think that was the first time anyone ever stood up in this community and said, this happened to me, this happened to my family. But the truth is, it is happening to a lot of them.
Stacey, great job. Thank you for bringing that information.